All right, guys. This is some real politics, dude. We're about to talk about some real deal politics, and if I see the viewer count drop during this segment, I'll know for a fact that you guys are not into real politics, that you guys just like drama and memes, because you know what we're talking about today? Oh boy. Oh, this is boring, but it's so important. You guys ready for some boring but important shit? You better be. Trump's economic policy and how objectively dog shit it is. You see, there is an enormous consensus among economic experts, even on the right, even ones that support Trump politically, that best case scenario, one of Trump's biggest economic policies, that being tariffing inputs from China, would be, at best, a negligible or no impact on the economy. Best case scenario, that we would notice no change. While the worst case and more likely scenario is that the working class, the consumers, the market, would have to pay more for those products. It would literally fuck over the American people. And Trump supporters and conservatives are completely unwilling to tussle with that fact. So apparently, CNN, wanting to prove this fact, decided to bring a well-known Trump supporter who's considered a financial expert of sorts and an actual economic analyst onto their show and have them debate. The economic analyst, I believe, is her name, is it Catherine Rampell? It might not be. That might just be the Washington Post opinion columnist they were referring to in a previous story. I don't know what her name is, but the Republican economic guy is Shark Tank host Kevin O'Leary. Now, I've not watched much Shark Tank, but if you don't know what the deal with it is, it's like you get a few billionaires or millionaire-like investors up on stage. They're sitting in chairs, and the goal of people coming in is to impress them and to convince them with a product idea to invest in their company. And obviously, they're going to want, on stage, they're going to try and negotiate for, like, how about $10 million in exchange for 30% of your company? That kind of thing, right? And these aspiring business owners are going on there trying to get investments to start their businesses, but at the end of the day, the show's biggest use for the sharks, so to say, is that they're investing in these companies, and even if only 1 out of 100 of them ends up being a massive success, if they can nab 30% of share ownership in one of these companies when they're worth nothing, and then they end up being like a scrub daddy, which is actually a product that went global after it appeared on Shark Tank, it's massive. Once you get to a certain level of rich, that's how you get richer, is investing in companies when they're small and buying as big of a slice as you can for as little as you can afford, helping the company get off the ground, and then way later on, selling or trading those shares, right? That's what it's all about. It's a very capitalist-y show, and people love it. Now, Kevin O'Leary, very wealthy guy, big-time Trump supporter, big-time defender of Trump's economic policy. And this woman is here to argue on that front. Now, obviously, I know that economic policy is certainly far from the most interesting thing about Trump, but I do feel it's still important to learn about why the things that Republicans want when it comes to our economic system are so destructive, because these are the things that are boring enough that nobody cares when the Republicans succeed in passing policy in this realm, but then they do once it has a very real impact on their lives. It's worth noting that Kevin defended the FTX guy. Yeah, Kevin O'Leary is a massive piece of shit. You're going to get that impression pretty quickly watching this. I have not seen this yet. I saw like the first minute, to be fair, but that was just checking to see if it was interesting. I had this sent to me by a chatter, and I am surprised that a chatter wants me to cover something that is so boring but important. But hey, I'm down. This stuff actually interests me.
I don't really understand why he keeps going back to this well of more and more and more tariffs.
Let me explain why. Let's take China. Let's take an example that every American understands, TikTok. Everybody knows TikTok. American people made a decision in Congress to ban it on midnight, Jan 19th. The supreme leader of China said, no, we're going to use your court systems to litigate the American people so that doesn't happen. I can't do that in China. The Supreme Leader would never let me do that. I can't protect my IP there. Chinese have been screwing my 45 businesses for 35 years. I like the idea of going to war with China with tariffs to change behavior.
But it didn't change behavior. All it did was hurt American companies.
Weak leadership that doesn't know how to implement.
This is the same leadership. It was Trump who launched the trade war with.
Like I've said before, what she's saying here isn't even her opinion alone. It is the unanimous opinion of economic experts. Trump's policy of tariffing imports from China is only going to hurt American businesses. And as fun and cool and base as that sounds on paper, that always means those businesses just pass the damage down to the consumer so they don't end up incurring any harm. The American businesses never actually end up being the one that the harm sticks to. It always passes down to the consumer, which is us, the working class. Obviously, we don't want this. But on paper, to a Trump supporter, as long as you only look on the first level, the first layer of the situation, it sounds super base. Yeah, we're doing a trade war with China. We're telling China what for. We're going to start bringing manufacturing to America or to other countries. And it's okay, well, no, that's not what's going to happen. American companies and eventually, by extension, the consumers are going to end up losing money and things are going to get more expensive because the reason why we get so many imports from China already is because it's the cheapest place to get our things imported from. If we try to stop that and tariff these things, we're just going to end up paying more. It may not be a ton more. There's some debate among financial experts as to how much it could be. They've said it could be a small minority say it could be a negligible or non-noticeable change in prices if we start getting our manufacturing done from somewhere else. That's almost as cheap. However, a lot of estimations are that it would absolutely noticeably increase the price of a lot of products. I mean, anything you can imagine that has a made in China thing on it, or hell, I think, is China producing shitloads of steel or is it consuming it? I'm pretty sure China is I think China is consuming more steel and concrete than any other country. So it would be enormously stupid to tariff Chinese steel when China would clearly have an interest in buying steel from us. But why would they do that if we're tariffing theirs? Mind you, steel is one of the things the first thing Trump would tariff from China.
And it was Clinton saying, let's democratize China, let's show them democracy, and they'll play fair and they'll play fair.
But to Catherine's point,
it's time to raise tariffs at China to 400%.
Hang on a second.
Trump already raised 400%.
Not enough.
Dude, 400%. This guy is suggesting, I don't even know, I don't know how to get across to you how fucking nightmare that would be. I mean, imagine, Trump was suggesting a 40 to 60% tariff. Just to put that in perspective, Trump has suggested a 40 to 60% tariff. That is the range that he has repeatedly suggested. 400%. Can you imagine how fast, there would just no longer be, imports from China anymore, and how quickly prices would skyrocket? It would demolish the U.S. economy. And on top of that, it would ruin everything about the current state of China's investment in America. China low-key needs America to do well, and outright conflict with China is very unlikely for America because our economies are so inextricably tied. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. We rely on their imports. They rely on the fact that we are continuously importing things from them. There's a lot of money flowing into China from us and a lot of products flowing from China to us. We both benefit from this situation. The Republicans trying to demonize this world trade for their isolationist, anti-globalist conspiracy agenda. It is genuinely insane. They want to destroy not just our economy, but if they nuke America's economy, the world's economy is going to feel it, bro. You guys are, I don't care if you're Canadian, well, especially if you're Canadian, but if you're The only countries that won't feel it as hard, ironically, are countries like Russia. Although even Russia might feel it because China and Russia are pretty close. So I don't even know. Like, it might actually affect our enemies negatively if our economy goes under. Because at the end of the day, the world economy has made everybody beholden to the success of everybody else. And that's kind of one of the core benefits of globalism is that a world economy and world leaders having a desire for their countries to do well, even if it's just to serve their own ends, means that at the very least they're beholden to the well-being of other countries because they can't just lock themselves away, become self-sustaining isolationist nations that then can just engage in whatever world politics policy they feel like, rather than having a mutual need to engage in peace and relationship building between nations. That's the whole point of globalism, and it's why Republicans and conservatives demonize and fear it.
Been many studies showing that U.S. companies and consumers are the ones who bore the cost.
Academic study. I'm doing real business in China. I'm actually doing.
You're talking about academic studies. I'm doing real business in China. This is like the core difference between the way that left-wingers think and conservatives think. When a left-winger sees data and studies and it's like, oh, thousands of scientists and like professionals and academics like went through the scientific method to like come to a unanimous consensus, that's probably pretty trustworthy. Meanwhile, conservatives like to listen to a guy who says that his personal experience is special and representative of the reality, one that is not reflected by data, and thus always have to insist whenever that data is brought up that the data is not trustworthy, and only some guy's experience is trustworthy. Look at examples such as Tim Pool. Look at examples like I've seen the documents Alex Jones. Look at examples like Project Veritas. All just, hey, trust this guy's story who's just telling you something that happened. It is more trustworthy than a unanimous consensus of experts. It's the fundamental difference between how you appeal to conservatives and how you appeal to progressives.
Doing business there.
Yeah.
I'm actually working
American
there.
companies,
there's no academics in my company.
Where do you think they buy their inputs from?
Let me explain something to you.
From China.
The Chinese
It
steal
hurts
my
American
IP. They make the same.
Because if we stop getting our imports from China, we're just going to end up paying more. It's that simple. Experts agree on it. It's just there's a reason why all of our imports are from China now. It's cheapest for these companies. If they started having their manufacturing and imports come from other countries, wouldn't they already be doing that there if it was cheaper? Cutting China off as an option is not a good idea. Like tariffing the imports so they're more expensive from China is not a good idea. Trump's plan is literally just tricking Americans into cheering for prices on everything they buy that comes from China to go up. It is so depressing when you know how obvious it is and how surprisingly simple the situation is. Like, listen, economics isn't like a cakewalk, but it's also not insanely complicated. At least this issue isn't. You simply Google, what do experts think of Trump's tariff plans? And you will find dozens of academic reports and articles that are reports on those academic reports of a consensus that it would be bad, and best case scenario is it would have no effect, but it probably will have an effect and it won't be good. Like, it's really not that hard, but the average American is so economically illiterate when it comes to, the world and American economy that Trump's talking points about how we're going to lower taxes and tariff China, they're like, yeah, that's what we need to fix the U.S. economy. That's what's going to make everything right. And of course, getting rid of immigrants too. They also believe that'll help. Even though, once again, overwhelmingly, experts agree that immigration is a massive net benefit to the U.S. economy, and it would be catastrophic if we cut off immigration entirely, or even largely, due to the massive cutting off of labor flow that we would have. Like, the amount of the labor that immigrants are doing, particularly from south of the border, is unfilled labor positions when you don't consider immigration. Like, native-born U.S. citizens aren't doing it, so that work would be undone. The economy would suffer for it. There's just nothing that the Republicans suggest, despite having this reputation for being the economically savvy party, would actually help the U.S. economy. Just because they're a party of super rich bastards doesn't mean they're economically savvy. Like, if they were economically... Like, mind you, isn't it funny how when Nancy Pelosi is like a god at trading stocks, which she is, by the way, like insanely so, the right, instead of recognizing real, instead accuses her of insider trading, while these people are touted as like their wealth being a show of how good of a job they would do running the country. It's just a blatant double standard. It's a blatant double standard.
Product with the molds that I pay for there, they ship them into this country under a different brand. I don't like it anymore, and I've been trying to solve this for 30 years.
If you tariff everything from China at
there's no
60%,
academic in my world. I'm
you're going to be
doing business
paying
in
more
America.
for the stuff you buy. You're going to be paying more for the stuff you buy. They knew even in the 1600s that you should not tariff inputs.
Kevin, let's
just take a yoga mat.
Every American.
Kevin, 400% tariff on a yoga mat. We'll make it in Vietnam or make it in India or make it in America. We won't buy anything.
If it was less expensive, if it wasn't going to be more expensive to get our imports from those countries, then why aren't we doing it more than China already? China is the biggest importer to America because it's the cheapest for the U.S. consumers. So once again, her point stands. We would end up paying more. The U.S. companies would end up paying more, which would mean they make the consumer pay more.
I think with China. And the
it will
Supreme
still
Leader
be more expensive.
He'll come to
It
New York.
will be more expensive.
No.
Absolutely, it would
We
be.
won't buy it from there.
Wait,
what do you mean we won't buy it?
Hold on,
read up
one
there.
second, because I get the
Why
back
are you
and
raising
forth,
the price?
But Kevin, you're having a different. This is always what happens when we talk about Trump and the economy. People come
Nothing
on
to do
here.
with Trump.
Hang on.
China.
Just hang on. People come on the show. And then they defend a different economic policy than the one that Trump is advocating. He says in the clip, what am I going to do? Negotiate?
Fair. Even though the shit that this guy is suggesting is stupid and awful, it's not even the same thing that Trump is suggesting. Because mind you, Trump supporters don't defend Trump. They defend their best steel man of the shit Trump says and does. And it's never what he actually said or did. So it's always bullshit, right? But regardless, they try to make it seem less ridiculous and embarrassing to be a supporter of him by defending him in these bullshit ways, right?
With China or Mexico, he doesn't want to negotiate. He says you're not going to get anything from them. Okay, that's what he says. He does not want to negotiate. Also, the question I asked you is, where is the rest of the plan? Where is the rest of the economic plan?
Well, why don't you just look at
There
his
is
track
none.
record for the
It's
last...
just a talking point.
The term that he had, no inflation, fantastic.
He's just going to nuke the economy. No inflation. I'm sorry. Did the inflation rate not fluctuate constantly under Trump? The thing that Trump had that was so beneficial was the low interest rates during his presidency, and that wasn't even because of his economic policy. I've yet to meet a single Trump supporter or see a single Trump supporter that can explain, okay, here are the policies that Trump put into place that lowered the inflation rate and lowered interest rates. I've yet to see a single Trump supporter capable of telling me or saying what policies Trump did that and how they did it. Because I can specifically point to Biden policies and how they've helped the economy. I can point to policies like Biden opening up the permits for more green energy and domestic oil drilling than any president or administration in American history, and how it brought hundreds of thousands of new jobs. And how much that alone dropped the unemployment rate. I'm sorry. Not to mention the influx of immigration has, I believe, dropped the underemployment rate as well. So we've got more jobs being fulfilled that are not otherwise getting enough people applying. As far as I'm aware, there's a lot of reasons and ways that Biden has improved the economy during his time. In fact, these same improvements, if Trump wins, are probably going to be why, even if Trump does fuck up our economy in the long run with these policy decisions, he's going to be able to take credit for another 4 years of economic, stability.
Domestic wage growth. I mean, look, he actually sat in the seat at the White House.
2020.
You may not like what he did.
President
you may not like
Trump
him,
was president in 2020.
But I don't remember 9% inflation when he was
I remember 18% unemployment. I mean, I remember...
Yes! Yes! People have memory hold so hard how fucked the economy was at the end of Trump's presidency. It's a big part of why he lost in 2020 as well, mind you, is because we were literally relying on stimulus checks. Trump was the only reason the stimulus checks happened, mind you, Trump fought them, is because at the end of the day, Trump gave up fighting them because he recognized that if he allowed them to go through, it might help him win the election, which was like a month or two away at that point. Like, you guys remember that, right? How fucked the U.S. economy was during the last few months of Trump? Like, Trump did not get to skate off the memory of a good economy during the last election, but people memory hold those last few months since the last election. They memory hold that, and they just remember the majority of Trump's presidency where he got the benefit from Obama's 8 years of progressive economic policy. And they memory hold it. I don't know what else to say. It's like Trump fucked the economy. We've experienced it. People just don't remember. They still give Trump credit for a good economy. Can't explain how he did it, but hey, the economy was good when he was president, so makes sense, right?
Happened when that was going on?
A pandemic that he bungled.
Are you saying he created the virus?
No, but he absolutely made it worse.
Wait, what? Wait, a pandemic that he bungled. Are you saying he created the virus? I can tell that guy is a Republican pundit. I see. Is he from Fox News? Because that guy seems like he might be from Fox News.
By lying about the risk, by telling people not to get tested, get tested.
You're saying he should have personally cured
He's going to bring up, like, Fauci or something.
the virus as the president.
No, I'm saying...
You're saying he should have personally gone out there, like Jesus Christ himself, put his hands on every American's head and cured them magically of the virus? I love when they do that. I love when they say something super retarded or try to project a really retarded statement on a progressive, and they hit him with that, like, smug monster from the show From smile. Like, just that communication of, you know exactly what I'm doing, you know that I know what I'm doing, and the audience is too dumb to get it, and they're falling for what I'm doing, and you know that. And, like, he's just sort of, like, gleefully signaling to her that, like, he's doing the thing that conservatives do, you know? That's why they're always so smug when they make their incorrect arguments.
He should have given his tests to Americans rather than to
She did not say that. I mean, but Scott, okay.
I'm sorry. This idea that somehow because Trump was the president, that the virus has political proclivities and decided...
I'm sorry. Would we like to look at countries that took COVID seriously and what the infection and death rates were there? Because I can point you to New Zealand, where they had, man, they took that shit seriously. New Zealand did not fuck around with COVID. And I think they never broke 1,000 infections. They may have by now, but last I checked, it was late into COVID, and they weren't even close to 1,000 total infections nationally in New Zealand. And, that's just an example of one country that took it seriously. Hell, China went full martial law to deal with COVID, and they've handled it way better. It's just massive copium to say that Trump handled COVID well. He just didn't. He didn't. Mind you, there is blame to be had on, like, Fauci with the whole lying about masks not working thing. It was done for good reason, but it was a lie. They do have a shred of truth to that. But regardless, Trump lied even harder. He encouraged his entire follower base to spread the virus, and millions of Americans are dead now and going to die because of this virus. It's now a forever thing. It's just a seasonal killing flu now. A very powerful, more deadly than the flu, seasonal flu now. It's just around. It's not going anywhere. I disagree. China handled it worse. At least in the beginning when they went full martial law, that shit was effective. But eventually, yeah, because China is a, like, authoritarian autocracy and they want to continue with their economy building, then, yeah. Hong Kong handled it well. That's good to hear. But I know that China, in particular, handled it well early on. But much like with Trump, although, to be fair with China, is actually somewhat legitimate because their economy is exploding massively, like to the extent that, if you don't know this, by the way, China holds the #1 position for the most new millionaires per day. Every single day, China is getting like, I don't know, it's like 100 or something new millionaires or something crazy like that. Like, not only is their infrastructure rapidly growing, their economy is rapidly growing, their millionaire population and billionaire population is rapidly growing, because this is a very capitalist country, despite what tankies will tell you, little reminder of that. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they did a whole like force back to work type thing so they could keep that momentum going.
To prolong itself has been crazy to me since it's been floated.
You don't think leadership mattered at all?
Leadership of the virus? No, I don't actually.
You don't?
I don't believe the virus listens to politicians.
You don't think it matters that Trump withheld various kinds of testing kits and PPE from states that were asking for it, and then he told them to go buy it themselves,
and then you think that was the masks? Is that what you think?
And then he outbid them for it, so they couldn't.
No argument, just really? That's what you think? I really do. Oh, man. No wonder Anna Kasparian fell to the dark side, man. It really is, like, just so much work being a progressive figure, having to, like, research and care about things and like, genuinely try to keep up with the truth. But then being a conservative pundit, you make way more money, and you just get to spread bullshit. You don't have to, like, know anything other than, like, the canned talking points, and you just have to be good at putting on a suit, going in, and laughing and hand-waving off real arguments and criticism and telling people what they want to hear, as long as it leads to your worldview and your ideology. God, it's such a grift. It's been going since the advent of talk radio, man. Probably longer.
Anybody worried about the virus in this election?
No.
I was talking about virus.
I do want to get back to the economic
I mean, you are implicitly by
because,
pretending it didn't
Scott,
happen.
Republicans keep saying that this election is about the economy. Now, I guess it's maybe also about immigration, but it is about the economy when you ask voters. And again, like, I'm wondering, what else is Trump planning on doing, and can he articulate it?
Well, to me, I think it's a great question.
Can he articulate
and it needs to be fleshed out. I think we should probably play the clip, though, of Harris from the Chicago Economic Club do we not have it? Because she didn't show up to talk. So here's what I think. He's going to extend the tax cuts. He's going to...
God, they're just so fucking skeevy. Like, well, we should play the clip of Harris at the event Trump went to. Oh, wait, she didn't go to that event. Okay. What's this have to do with Trump's policy? Like, you're literally like 5 beats away from saying, well, Hillary Clinton, if you haven't forgotten, like 2024 Hillary Clinton arguments.
Rein in the federal government and the overburdensome regulatory state, which he can now do because of the Supreme Court. And he's going to take on these countries that screw American workers. That's the plan. And by the way, he's going to crack down on immigration to the benefit.
True Democratic Isaiah 98. I didn't say they had the best infrastructure. I said their infrastructure is exploding. Sometimes literally, but literally like growing out. Like they're consuming immense amounts of steel and cement and concrete because expansion. Unfortunately, a lot of infrastructure is being allowed to crumble, but like I said, massive expansion. And they want to keep that going, no doubt.
Of American
he's going to deport 20 million people, the people who pick your crops, the people who process your meat, the people who, care for your grandmother, the people who serve all sorts of critical functions in this country. Yeah.
I love his little smile because it's all it takes, right? Just a smugly smile like, nah. Just give that like nah face in response to a real argument. And conservatives eat it up, especially if it's a man doing it to a woman, like just letting her know, putting her in her place, that's what conservatives like. The fact is that she's completely right, though. She is, of course, the actual economic expert here, not a right-wing pundit. She is talking about the fact that workers that come from other countries, even illegal immigrant workers, but legal immigrants as well, overwhelmingly fill spots in the economy or in the working, like in the worker... what's the word for it? And like the worker slots, right? That are otherwise not being filled. Take, for example, the most common, which is non-high school graduate applying labor, right? So imagine like your classic manual labor, stuff that doesn't require a high school degree. These jobs, if we get rid of immigration, don't get done. Like no one's applying for them. Like they're just not. Even with the amount of non-high school graduates in America, of which there are a good amount, those jobs they're not getting done. There is not demand for those jobs, except for among immigrants. They will do that work. In fact, it's ideal. They're willing to do it. It pays well enough. It doesn't require things that they can't do because of not being from America, particularly language stuff. And oftentimes it can be done under the table because unfortunately in this country we're unwilling to provide like easy ways of getting a job for illegal immigrants. Because we assign a lot of evilness, I guess, to the concept of illegal immigration for no fucking reason. But the fact is, our economy is held up and is constantly growing in large part due to an influx of immigration. That is a worker resource that is constantly flowing into the country. Trump is running on the idea of cutting off that flow. And it is Republicans' prerogative to chuckle, smuckle, and smugly smile and you know, go, nah, in response to experts as they tell you this, because Republicans need to believe the reason why they have problems, why their lives aren't as good as they believe they should be, why the economy isn't as good as they believe it should be, is because the immigrants. It must be the immigrants. It must be the brown people.
Yeah, he's going to deport a lot of people, and that's going to worsen the economy. In fact, there have been, I don't know, like a dozen different independent economic analyses from, again, independent economic analyses from Goldman Sachs, AEI, Brookings, Nomura.
Guarantee you he's going to respond with something along the lines of, well, do you really trust these crazy globalists, blah, blah, blah. He's going to like do a pseudo-socialist talking point to try and discredit those institutions, I bet. I feel it. I feel it in my fucking gut, dude. Whenever you try to appeal to a conservative's fake sense of economic like knowledge or caring about like capitalism or the economy, they immediately just they transform like with a poof of smoke. They transform into a fucking socialist, and all of a sudden they hate corporations and they hate fucking investment funds, and they hate all these things that like are core to capitalism, the ideology that their entire political beliefs are built around. It's like, okay, so you actually don't care about making the economy better. It's more about keeping brown people out. The making the economy better is just a fake excuse for why you want to do it, not because they're brown, but because somehow, imaginarily, they're making the economy worse and doing more crime, but they're actually not, and you're not going to accept that they don't, because otherwise you have to accept that, well, the obvious reason why they want to keep brown people out of the country.
Peterson Institute, like all of them
I know your argument. If you want to run on more illegal immigration as a Democrat, go ahead. I just don't think...
What, man, he's so slimy. Who is this guy? Can I get a name on this guy? Oh, man, I bet this dude has, like, a long Wikipedia page of, like... In 2020, he said that Democrats, or that Joe Biden is a pedophile 487 times. It would be some shit like that. No, this is not Kevin O'Leary. No, that's not him. Kevin O'Leary's the bald guy.
I think it's going to work in the election.
He wants to deport 20 million. I'm not done with his. I know what his economic policy is because he has talked about it. He doesn't understand how any of it would work, but he has talked about it. He wants 10% global tariffs, which would worsen inflation. Mm-hmm. He wants to.
Well, remember, ma'am, they can't let you talk about his economic policy because if you actually explain what his economic policy is and what effect it'll have, everyone might realize, oh, especially if they Google it, oh, this is really bad. So he's got to make sure he interrupts you and doesn't let you get an entire thought out because you might actually educate a right-wing viewer.
To deport 20 million people, which would worsen inflation and reduce growth. He wants to politicize the Federal Reserve, which would worsen inflation. He wants to devalue the dollar, which would worsen inflation.
And after all that,
all of these things.
The American population wants that economy back. What do you say to that?
I say that we should be talking about what the policies.
There it is, guys. Trump was president when the economy was like that. Can't explain and won't explain any way that Trump is responsible for it. But hey, he was president when the economy was like that. That means he's responsible for it. That's Trump's economy. Those are the rules, I guess, that we all pretend are true, and that's how the presidency or the economy works. And so you can be a literal expert explaining in depth what his policies are and how they're harmful. But hey, people want that Trump economy back. What could you say to that? What could you say to that?
They're just too dumb to understand.
And the fact is, he's not wrong. People do want that Trump economy back. And if Trump wins in November, it'll be because they remember what that Obama-era economy Trump presided over before the last few months of his election, of his presidency, were like. They memory hold the last bit, but they'll remember the majority of it. They'll attribute it to Trump, and they'll want it back, and that's how he'll get reelected, if he does get reelected.
All about messaging.
No, it's because we don't talk
Because a lot
about
of people don't understand, Kevin, what tariffs are. They see it as this great punishment to China that we're going to do. He says he's going to raise it up. He said today 2,000%.
The hilarious thing, not even going to hurt China. Not even going to hurt China. The most it'll hurt China is if U.S. businesses stop getting their imports from China and choose like another country, let's say India, for example. We're just going to end up paying more. So that'll just be the new status quo. It'll feel like inflation, but technically won't be. It'll just be prices going up, which is what Americans think inflation is. So maybe it'll have, even without the higher inflation rate, you'll be able to point to the higher prices and still have the same impact on Trump's perception. But like I said, he just said 2,000. Are they raising it by like magnitudes every time they reference the like tariff rate they want to go for? Jesus Christ.
Tariffs on China. But here's the thing. It punishes the American importer. The Chinese are paid. Once you pay for those molds, the Chinese have put that money in their pocket, and then you are charged for the tariffs when you're bringing your molds in. So, and then, hold on, and just one other point that he said.
Moving back to
They didn't.
But one other point.
They did
One
not.
other point.
They did not
One
do
other
that.
point is he says that's going to incentivize people to come back. That's pie in the sky. If I give 2,000% tariffs on China.
America is one of the most expensive places to do your manufacturing from. Why the fuck would American companies decide to start doing their production here? They're just going to pick another country that's a bit more expensive, and regardless, it's never going to affect them at the end of the day. They're just going to pass the loss in their profits down to us and make us pay more. That's how it always goes.
China. It's going to force all these people to come back. No, I'm for American jobs.
Do you know what?
And
Do you know what?
that's why I
jobs
support.
Americans
That's
work
why I
in?
support Kamala.
Well, mind you, this guy with his whole talk about American jobs certainly doesn't know, or if he does not want it to be brought up, that Biden, and if they want to say Kamala is basically already the sitting president, like they've been saying for a while now, bullshittily, it's not even a real thing. It's just like, it's based on the idea that Biden is like asleep all day, and so Kamala Harris is like serving the job of president. And so whenever you see conservatives say, why hasn't Kamala done anything yet? Just know they're basing that on this like conspiracy assumption that Kamala Harris is like puppeting Biden right now and is actually the acting president. Literally a conspiracy theory. Shut that shit down right away. Say, nope, she is not the president. Biden is the president. Her job is not the president's job. What is happening now does not reflect 101 to Kamala's presidency. She is not the same person. It is not her administration. So yeah, just shut that shit down. It's completely, that talking point, completely based on a conspiracy theory. But if they want to operate under that assumption that Biden's performance reflects on Kamala's potential performance, Biden's created hundreds of thousands of jobs with one policy alone, and that was expanding green energy and oil production in the U.S. Like here, domestically. Like, have you seen the dudes on like social media and stuff talking about the oil fields that have been opened up? Like, hey, you want a good paying job? Go, you can apply for a job at the oil fields. It's been like a meme because so many dudes are like, yo, what the fuck? These oil field jobs pay like crazy. So if you're like down to do physical hard labor and to get paid a lot per hour for it, those jobs in the oil fields, very worth it. That's Biden. That is a position that got expanded and opened up under Biden to the point where they're hiring massively, and it's become a meme for young, like, down-to-do hard labor who want a good pay for it dudes to apply for. That's Biden, baby. That's Democrat economic policy, creating jobs, actually doing the thing that Republicans like to virtue signal about doing and then never actually do.
Kamala Harris, and I supported President
So you know what jobs
Biden
Americans
because
work in?
they brought manufacturing back when President Trump didn't. The tariffs that he's talking about is not going to incentivize anybody else to go, oh my goodness, I'm not going to want to pay those tariffs, so I'm going to build this plant here in America.
I actually agree with
it's
you
not
on tariffs
because
with our European allies, but not with China, because unfortunately I live in the real world and not all of you are doing business. China, like I am, they cheat, they steal.
I live in the real world. That's why you can only take my stories as fact. These studies and this data and these expert consensus, it's all Ivory Coast academic bullshit. I'm a real businessman working and doing business in China, and I can tell you what's really going on. I tell you how it is. And that's what conservatives like. They like to find people who tell them how it is, which is, of course, never what the actual experts say. It's the same thing as like when people say, I look for experts to tell me how it is, how it really is, and they go and watch a guy telling them the Earth is flat, and NASA is Jewish conspiracy liars telling us the Earth is round falsely, and 1 trillion people are in on the conspiracy because that would what would be necessary to convince everybody the Earth is fucking flat.
They don't
or round, whatever.
Play by the level
I don't
playing
think
field.
they.
Right, but yet you're doing
going
business
to
there.
invest in a
But
business
yet you're
that
doing
makes
business there.
nails? Are you going to invest in a business that makes all of the low value inputs that we buy
I'm a
from
lowly
China?
businessman
No, because
investing.
they don't have any value add.
That's a good call, by the way. That's a very good call. I would just love to ask him, why don't you, right now, where do you have your production done? Where do you have your production done for your companies? Where is it done? It's done in China, mind you, like 100%, like 90% of any product that is produced by a company he owns any stake in, China. Why don't you do it in India? Why don't you do it in Taiwan or something? Like, why not? Why is it China? Oh, because China's the cheapest? Oh, because everything she's saying is right and your business operates under that assumption that China is the cheapest for manufacturing and import? Because that's the case, and you're willing to accept it when it comes to your bottom dollar, but not when it comes to an online or on TV argument about politics? Huh. Interesting, Kevin O'Leary. Interesting. I wonder why. When your money is on the line, your companies are doing their manufacturing in China, like everybody else is. But on the show, you're like, no, we need to stop doing it. Oh, yeah, no more China. Why isn't it out of another country? Why is it China? That'd be my question to him. He's a business owner. He's the Shark Tank guy. Why are all these companies he owns shares and shares and shares and big pieces of manufacturing out of China primarily? Why not move it all to other countries? He knows why. He'll never admit it because it doesn't make Trump look good. But when his money's on the line, he makes the right choice. He understands this issue just fine when it's about his money on the line in private. But he pretends like he doesn't get it, or acts like he does, but to anyone who knows, to her, he is pretending like he doesn't get it, and is pretending to be, super dedicated to a wrong opinion that he truly believes. But he knows. That's how he's so successful. Nobody who is as wealthy as Trump or Kevin O'Leary is this illiterate when it comes to economics. No one.
Do you agree with the Biden tariffs on China?
No.
So
I've been very critical.
So
of
since
those.
Harris is running on that, how do you view the difference between their postures?
I think her tariffs, which are in.
Mind you, the tariffs that Kamala Harris wants to do on China, even if they are bad, economic experts agree, nowhere near as bad as what Trump wants to do. And also, Kamala Harris's economic policy across the board is overwhelmingly more positive than Trump's. So, like, you can say, oh, but Kamala Harris might also do the thing that Trump says he's going to do. How is this an attack on Kamala? Can you explain any other reasons why Kamala's economic policy is bad besides she might do a thing that Trump promises to do, the guy who you support? Can you give any other reason than Kamala and Trump are the same for why Kamala is bad? Please, sir.
fact, a continuation of Biden tariffs are dumb ideas. I think that we have lots of evidence showing that Americans pay those. I don't really understand.
So yeah, she's right. Not every single economic policy from the Democrats is good. Like, the Democrats are far from perfect. They're just so much better than the Republicans that there's not usually much of a point in talking about their flaws. But that is kind of the point that Republicans are going for. They recognize that most progressive commentators are honest people who have criticisms of the Democrats, and they want to get you to talk about your criticisms because to your moderate voters, it reads as even progressives don't like the Democrat candidate, but the Republicans love their candidate so much. He must be so good. He must be so representative of what the people want. And that's the perception they want people to get, which is why you should never, ever, ever cede that ground in a conversation. No, this is a conversation about Trump's economic policy. Keep it on topic. That's what you say. Just shut it down. They know what they're doing. You're not gonna... Don't be afraid of coming off as too mean or whatever. They know what they're doing. I just got done voting in the polls, and I voted all blue for my early vote. Let's go. Let's make Texas blue. Let's go, Takumi Night Corps. Blue Texas all the way. That's what we want. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, found it enjoyable, entertaining, or even educational, then please consider perhaps leaving a like. It actually supports the channel directly and forces YouTube to push my content and the algorithm out to more people, and helps a ton. Commenting as well kind of boosts the effect of the likes, so I really appreciate that too. And of course, if you haven't already, consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon to turn on all notifications on YouTube, so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video, because if you don't, they won't. And of course, if you want to follow my social medias to see more from me on other platforms, you can do so through the links in the description, including the link to my fan Discord down below, the main hub of my community, totally free to join. And on top of that, I host game events, call-in streams, watch parties, and I announce all my new uploads and streams there. So if you want to be a part of my community, like the main core of it, make sure you join my fan Discord. I highly recommend it. It's a great time there, too. Great fun. And of course, finally, if you want to support me directly, like a lot of lovely people have so far today, thank you, by the way, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, you can always donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buying merch at the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless, though, no matter how you watch this video, even if you're just a lurker, watching and not saying anything, I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you again, and have a good one.